Hey everybody, Brian Davis here, By B Davis podcast up and running, week number 2 as we get this thing going. And while there are some big matchups on the slate this week, Texas at Kentucky, Texas A&M at Arkansas, Texas Tech at Arizona State, I wanted to talk about something that happened at Auburn this week that really got my attention, and I think it's going to get a lot of athletic directors' attention as well. Don't know if you saw the news, but Auburn decided to move the 2026 season opener against Baylor, move it away from Jordan-Hare Stadium in Auburn and move it to Atlanta. They're now going to play that game at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium, right? Instead of Baylor fans getting to go to the Plains and have a wonderful weekend at an awesome SEC venue, no, sorry. You're going to go to the home of the Falcons, just like it is the home of the Cowboys in Arlington or the Texans in Houston, any other pro stadium, and you're going to get denied that experience. Now, why is that a big deal? Well, it's because a lot of reporting coming out of that game about this decision. Auburn officials agreed to move that game because the organizers of the game, the Aflac Kickoff Group and Peachtree Entertainment, they have agreed to pay the Auburn players $4 million in NIL money, right? That money is going to go straight to the players. And they could make even more if the game is a sellout, which I don't know that it will be, but there's going to be a good crowd nonetheless. But a minimum bar was established. Now, that alone, friends, is an amazing, amazing thing because here you have a school that is willing to give up a home game to move to another stadium in another town in another state for a major NIL payday for the players. Here's a way you can reward your team without having to dip into your revenue share and without having to go out and get the boosters to pay money. Hey, let's just move a game, move it to Atlanta. I think that the most interesting thing out of all this was the fact that the Auburn athletic director, John Cohn, said it was almost irresponsible not to make this decision. Let me read you this quote. He said, "Let's face it, name, image, and likeness is now a primary focus for student athletes making decisions. And I'm not saying that's bad. I'm not saying it's good. I'm saying it's 2025, and that's the lens we have to look through." That's what he told AL.com, the Auburn beat writer there, Peter. And so that's amazing. That is amazing that the Auburn athletic director is just straight up admitting that this is where they are in 2025. And if you're a school like Auburn, who probably has to turn over every rock, this is an amazing decision. I bet you their counterparts at Alabama don't have this problem. There's probably plenty of folks at Alabama who are coughing up more than enough money for the Crimson Tide to cover their players. That's not so. That's not so on the Plains there. So that got me wondering what would happen? What would be the reaction if Texas or A&M decided to do something similar? What would be the reaction if Texas Athletic Director Chris Delcani said, "Hey, you know what? We're going to take the Ohio State game in 2026 and we're going to move that to AT&T Stadium and we're going to take the money and pay the players. Take the money that we would have gotten and pay the players." What if Trev Alberts says, here at Texas A&M, we're going to take the Arizona State game that we've got coming to Kyle Field next year. Let's move that to Houston. Let's move that to NRG, and we're going to pay the Aggies. We're going to pay the players. What would be the fans' reaction? I think they would go bat-s crazy. I just think that they would, especially. Well, first off, Chris Delcani's never going to do that. He's not going to do that, at least with Ohio State, considering that Texas has already gone to the shoe. He's going to want that return game in DKR, no question about that. But if you're Arizona State and A&M, if you're A&M, maybe you're not as tied. It doesn't mean as much as that. You could do it, but man, would you give up 100,000 people coming to Kyle Field just for a few NIL dollars? Man, that just seems really hard to get my head around. But also, I wouldn't have never guessed that Auburn would be a school that would give up a home game and move it to another state for NIL. But they did. This sounds like something that smaller, kind of the mid-tier schools will probably look at. Would Texas Tech consider this? It's probably not a hard no. It might be a weak maybe, but I think if you're Texas Tech, if you're Texas Tech, you might say, if you're Kirby Hocutt, you'd say, hey, listen, show me the numbers on that. I'd like to see some numbers on that. I'm not saying no, I'm not saying yes, but show me what the numbers would be on that. I just think it's a fascinating topic of how schools and athletic directors are trying to get creative and trying to find ways to get their players paid without going to the boosters. And I don't think this gets talked about enough uh, in in the media, college football media world, right? Because I have said this for years now. When NIL was approved and it really first got going, you can only go hit up your big boosters so much. Okay. You cannot continue to go to the same well all of the time because number one, they're gonna get tired of that real quick. And number two, they are going to pay for players that turn out to be busts, right? If I came to you, John Doe Booster, and I said, hey, listen, man, we have a chance to get a 5-star quarterback who everybody wants. He's the God's gift to quarterbacking, the greatest thing ever, but we're gonna need probably $2 million. Okay. I'm a big booster. I want my team to win. I'm certainly gonna put in the kitty. Here's my $2 million. And that quarterback turns out to be just not as good as you'd hoped. Maybe he gets hurt. Maybe he's just a complete bust. I don't know. But the point of this is that it doesn't work out. It doesn't work out like you thought. How willing are you going to be to answer that phone the next time the athletic director calls and says, oh my God, we need $2 million because we got this defensive end we really want to try to get, and or this linebacker or this safety or this receiver or whoever, right? That is an unsustainable thing, which is why it's imperative that athletic directors get creative and figure out new ways to find money without going back to the same well. You can only do that so many times, right? I've talked about this before and talked about this before on radio appearances, and I'll say it again here. I really thought that NIL would lead to a big series of restaurant ads and car dealership ads. Like I thought we would see Texas A&M, Texas Tech players on Chevy dealers and Ford dealer ads, from here to eternity, right? Instead we get lawyers who hit up the airwaves with all the lawyer airwaves. Maybe that should be a thing. Maybe that should be a thing. In Austin at least, Thomas J. Henry, hey, put some Longhorns on your ads. That would be amazing, right? Amazing NIL, but it just hasn't happened that way, and I've really been surprised by that. You look at what college basketball is doing. College basketball is also tinkering with some of the games. News came out this week that now that these rules have been tweaked to help college basketball teams play an exhibition game. Don't know if you saw this, but Rick Barnes' Tennessee Volunteers is going to play the Duke Blue Devils in an exhibition game that won't count. But guess what? It's sold out. Darn right it did. It sold out because people want to see those names. So if I'm the NCAA, why not create the rules to where that you take all the guardrails off the exhibition games? Well, they basically did. And so now not only can you play whoever you want to play, but there's not as many tight guidelines around what that money can be used for. So if I'm Kentucky or Duke or Texas or USC or whoever, pick your favorite school, go find a game that you'd want to play that you know is going to draw a big crowd. Maybe split the gate with the teams, and there you go. Everybody gets paid. Right now, if I'm at one of these big schools in Texas, I'd be calling Kelvin Sampson saying, hey, listen, Houston Cougars, you interested in coming to our venue? Or we'll find a neutral site venue, right? And we'll split the cost of the gate. We'll split the cost, and all the players will get the NIL, and boom, there you go. That goes into what the players get paid. I think that's an amazing idea that should really get looked at. And I'll be surprised if we don't hear more of that coming soon. Coming soon. I just think that there are so many creative ways that players could get paid NIL without having to go through the boosters. And when you see things like what Auburn did with these games, what I think Tennessee and Duke are going to do in Signal with basketball, I just think that this is going to be the kind of the wave of the future. Baseball, there's another one. Texas just played in Round Rock. Texas just played Texas Tech in Round Rock. Um, Granted, that's a fall ball thing, and but why not try to convert some opportunities there in NIL for the players? Because here's the thing: every single coach is trying to land the players at a certain dollar figure. Okay, but most everybody has to they only have a certain amount of money that they have at their disposal. Yes, there's revenue sharing, but everybody's going to want to go over the salary cap. There's going to be no rules about staying within the salary cap. Try to get as much as you can, get the players as much as they can, and they'll come to your school. You'll have a better team, you'll win. And it's like a chicken or the egg thing. It leads to more revenue and all that. So anyway, that was what got my attention this week. I think it's going to get a lot of other ADs attention this week. Hope you're enjoying reading what I'm putting out there. First week into the Substack, we got over 100 subscribers. I cannot tell you how grateful I am and appreciative of that. Lots more stuff coming as well. Picks for this week: give me Texas A&M and Texas Tech and a clean sweep for the big three there. No doubt about it. I really do think that all three programs are headed toward a big November. I think you say, well, Brian, the Longhorns are 4-2. Come on, dog. Well, I just think that the Horns are going to pick it up, and they'll get to Georgia. They'll get to that Georgia game with a chance to maybe climb back into the CFP race. And I just don't think Arch Manning and company are going anywhere anytime soon. I think the Aggies make it through their 3-game road swing undefeated, and I think Tech keeps winning to get to the matchup against BYU, where a whole lot's going to be at stake in the middle of November. So lots of reasons to stay interested, hang in there. Lots more college football as this thing just only gets better and better each and every week. I'm hoping to get better at the publication, at the Substack here at bybdavis.substack.com as we go along. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching, and definitely thank you for reading and subscribing. Until then, we'll catch you next time.